This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Hey, welcome everyone back at Apex 2024. It is, so that everyone knows, our last day here. And I believe every one of us has conference voice. In order to talk to somebody in a normal way, we're always yelling. I got a great show for you today. I'll introduce my panel in a minute, but we want to thank so much Apex 2024 for having us, setting us a beautiful studio up right next to Joe's Garage, and to our great sponsors, NAPA Trax. For over 30 years, NAPA Trax has made selecting the right shop management system easy by offering the best and most comprehensive SMS in the industry. NAPA Trax on the web at NAPATRACS.com. Talk to my friend Chris Cotton at AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching. Chris will help you shift your gears and redefine success. Imagine your business not just meeting, but exceeding every goal. On the web at autoshopcoaching.com. And ready to optimize training with today's class? Well, in just 5 minutes daily, boost knowledge, retention, and improve team performance. Start seeing results today. Join your peers at todaysclass.com. So I didn't sleep last night because I knew I was going to do this episode with you guys. Dave Johnson, president of ASE, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Well, over 30 years of automotive industry experience. You tried to retire, rumor has it. And just like Michael Corleone, they dragged you back in somehow.
Yes, I think that's how it feels some days.
David previously served as Global Director of Service Engineering Operations at Ford Motor Company, leading all vehicle repair support activities. Big job.
It was a great job, but it was a blessing, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good for you.
Great people.
Well, you bring a lot of foundation to your new job here at ASE. Scott Brown's here, president, founder of Diagnostic Network at diag.net. Listen to this, 22 years at IATN. Correct me if I'm wrong. He retired as president in 2018. Do I have that right so far?
That is correct.
He owns Connie and Dick's in the city?
Claremont,
California. He writes for P10, articles on diagnostics. I read one really cool this past month, maybe, on Tesla.
On the Tesla, yeah.
Amazing. You're a Tesla guy. He's an ASE Master Certified L1 Technician, 37 years.
43 years.
43?
Yeah.
How'd I get that? Wow.
Been a while since we talked.
Yeah, it has been. Matt Fonslow is with us, Riverside Automotive in Red Wing, Minnesota, of also Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z podcast, trainer, ASE subject matter expert. You probably were too for years, I bet.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I still am.
Yeah, you still are. And product evaluator and all around nice guy.
Just sawdust on filler.
That's right. Whenever somebody can't make it, they call Matt.
I am feeling a little intimidated right now.
Oh,
because of Donna?
Well, there's that, but you two.
She's shooting looks
Matt
over
and
here.
Scott, wow.
I don't have to look.
So I attended my first NASTAF meeting this week, and Dave Johnson was one of our speakers. I enjoyed the meeting immensely, and I took a lot of notes. And I took a lot of notes from you, Dave. If you're hanging out listening to this, is not a commercial for ASE, but it should be. And it can be, depending on how you listen and take this, because we believe it's so critically important. And Dave, being with us as the new president, kind of shared some ideas that he has and some places he would love ASE to go. Can't do it without you. We need your help. And there were some stats that you put up that kind of blew me away. The benefits of certification. And just let me read these in case you don't have your slide and you don't quietly remember.
I've got them memorized, but you read them.
No, go ahead then.
Okay.
Better productivity. What's the percent?
So 40%
Wow.
productivity. Pretty good, right? That's not the newest data, I'll say. We need to refresh that. But it had been sitting there in ASE for several years. And they hadn't been talking about it a lot. And I'm not sure exactly why, but I'll give you a theory on it. Let me quote the rest of the stats. We have 40% better productivity. We got 60% less comebacks. You have 30% less attrition. And then kind of the cherry on top, which this is new, is we've been doing these, what we call the A series surveys, right? And thank you everyone out there who's been responding to these surveys on what we call the task list. So that the things that you do day in and day out, so that we get the reflection of what, not just our subject matter experts that help put these tests together, but what's going on every day out there in terms of the work you're doing. So as a result of that, we did collect some demographic information around time in the industry, age, earnings, things like that. What we saw consistently across the board, regardless of age group, was a 20%, or in some cases better, uplift on earnings of technicians that had certifications versus non-certified. And that wasn't just the young ones, that was what was cool to me, was it was across the board. So we have this data, like, this is fantastic. I think the challenge is people say, and I think internally, we're all a bit technical. It's like, well, it doesn't mean it's caused by ASE certification. I look at that a little differently. Yes, I'm a Six Sigma black belt, so I understand the data and correlation versus causation. But I'm like, let's be clear. Correlation is a fantastic thing, even if it's not causation, because it tells you something about that individual that you may not know otherwise. And then I would argue, there's probably some causation in there as well. Maybe not measurable in the same way, but it reflects what that individual is and what their commitment.
The lifetime earnings number was pretty profound. It was 735,000. Was that a math calculation for you?
Yeah. So we have a marketing statistician that does some of this work for us. That was a number he came up with, and I saw how he did the math. I was blown away by it. That it was lifetime earnings, right? So that's, in some cases, 50 years as we looked at the data. And so I'm like, that's a staggering number. I kind of defer back to the 20%. I'm like, I just feel awkward about the 735,000 because I'm like, is everybody going to make that much more in their career? I don't know, but I love the 20%. I can stick with that.
So guys, let me throw out this concept of, I'm a automotive technology specialist or mechanical specialist, and I want to earn more money. I don't have my ASEs. Let's find a shop that values that, who will be willing to pay for what I will do to get them or that I have them. And I think that could be part of the magic of the additional earnings because people are willing to pay.
Part of this is I'm not the way I am because I listen to Van Halen. I listen to Van Halen because of the way I am. That's what you're basically saying right now with the ASE credentials leading to these types of benefits that wouldn't normally be correlated. They are because primarily it's voluntary. So the people taking it care. The shops demanding it, asking for it, care. It's rarely you're going to have this shop saying, I really need you to have your credentials in this and this, or we really want you to be a master technician, so you need to take these, but you're on your own. They're going to provide training. There's going to be service information and opportunities to learn on the job that's going to benefit you when you take the exam that leads to the credential, that leads to more and more money, not necessarily because of the credential, but because of everything that led to you being able to get the credential or earn the credential, if we want to speak properly.
And Matt said it so much cooler than I did. I love that. Here's another thing that I look at when you think about, well, here's what's in it for the technician. If I'm a shop owner, I think about those other three numbers. And everybody wins. It's not just the technician getting more because he got his certifications, and even if they paid for him, it's what the shop is getting out of it in my mind. But I'd love to hear Matt and Scott's thoughts on that.
The one metric that really echoes to me is the lack of the reduction in comebacks. That is a huge value adder because from a shop owner's perspective, the moment you have a comeback, that is a negative experience for that consumer. We spend a tremendous amount of money acquiring a customer. And the moment they have a negative experience, we risk losing that client. And that's what we tell our technicians, our staff. Everything we do, we are marketing our business. Professionalism, the way we communicate with our clients, everything's super, super critical. So if the ASE certification is indicative of a more proficient, trustworthy, competent technician that's able to turn out work that lasts and doesn't come back and keeps that customer happy, that's huge value. So to Matt's point about going to another shop, earning more, well, heck yeah, they can earn more because we can deliver better value to our clients and they keep coming back and bringing the service.
Yeah, and just what we're talking about right now is kind of one thing, competency. What is your competency in what you're doing? And this number should affect more than just the listeners who could be taking the exams or the shops who might be looking to maybe start having their technicians earn their ASE credentials. This has to spill out into much further. This has to spill out into consumers, parts suppliers, manufacturers. They have to look at that and go, competency is lowering rechecks or comebacks. That's a big number to them because how many of those are coming back because of the part failure itself, or how much is it coming back because installer error, misdiagnosed, something like that? Also, training companies should be looking at that number going, competency matters, therefore I have these numbers backed up by ASE. Now I have a sales marketing angle with shops and technicians to get into training. This is why, and not just, they're going to be able to work on the newest car coming in and, you don't have to be scared of Teslas. Not that isn't important, but already what you're working on right now, you could be better at and improve or increase profits just because you're not doing rechecks.
I have to tell you, my million thoughts of the last 5 minutes. But if we had stats on specific comebacks to his point, and we could go back to our educational members of our industry, the trainers, and say, because of this stat, this percent, number one, the ASE credential is critical, but also this is why you want to bring them back. The other thought that I had was earn your wings. And, I'm looking at a guy who's a pilot. We're going to talk about the FAA here in a few minutes. And so what do we have to say because of the credentials that we're earning our wings every day, personally, for the business, but the comeback and the critical gap in trust that happens? It's all about the customer. It's all about continuing to earn trust, relationships. And I love the whole idea of earn your wings, because that's, to me, overbearing its reach.
You can fly.
And you keep flying. You don't crash.
Well, that's a great point. Think about that. I mean, take the metaphor of earn your wings and say that we never want to fail. If we fail, we crash.
That's right.
Wow. Oh, if you're loving where we're going with this thing, just wait. It's going to get better. I'm having a problem with 2 words. You used them a couple of times at the NASDAQ meeting. He's mentioned them. You may have already said that. And the words are credentialed and certification. When I look at anything that has to do with ASE, there's this credentials page and then all the certifications that are listed. So what is it, guys? Because I love the word I'm credentialed. I'm certified. Hi, I'm certified at ASE. I'm credentialed, babe. I think credentials is the word.
That's funny, Carmen, because I struggle with the same thing, because I kind of love credentialed. And then I hear other people say, well, credentialed, what does that mean? And then same thing on the certified side. But it reminds me of just a quick story. Now that I'm at ASE, I'm paying a lot more attention to this than I ever did before. I'll say, to be honest, some bigger chain store type shops to say, come see we have certified technicians. And I'll say certified in what or by who? And I'm pretty sure I know who they aren't certified by, which is ASE. And so that's becoming a bit of a personal mission to me. And I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I want to have a better definition of that. Because you can give people certificates of completion. Those are legitimate things. But what is a credential? To me, it implies to me third party. And that's what a real certification is. I'd say you're not certified unless you're ASE certified, right? That may sound a little snooty of me, but at the end of the day, I don't know how else to define it, because that's not third-party certification if it's something else.
Scott, what's your thought on that?
Well, either way, it depends on who the consumer is of the statement, right? You're certified. I think a lot of consumers, they assume that the person working on their car is certified.
They all do.
That's
110%. Yeah. They all think that.
But we try to broadcast that to make sure that they are aware. That's just one piece of the pie, right? But credentialed, certified, it shows that you're trying to raise the bar, you're maintaining your trust, or you're trying to be relevant to delivering competent service.
Well, and this ties into, Scott, to something that we've recognized on the ASE side. I think we recognize that we're this credentialing certification body, and I think we've been a little shy sometimes, or I'll say in the last 10, 20 years maybe, where we've said, well, the credential is the thing, and we don't have to talk about it. As I'm coming in, I'm realizing we need to talk about it a lot. And it's not about ASE, but it is about consumers, first of all, recognizing that means something. And I think that ASE has a responsibility to the industry to do that. We're just dipping our toe into that. It's not cheap, it's expensive, but I don't know how else you start to make that matter, Scott, to your point, and that ASE certified or ASE credentialed, whichever term you want to use, that needs to be in there. It needs to mean something to that customer, because otherwise, you're right, they assume that they're certified by somebody or something. Otherwise, how could they be working on my car? Yet we know, well, not exactly the case necessarily.
Let's face it, your shop management system is the single most important tool in your shop, period. NAPA Trax was built from the ground up to make your business more profitable and efficient. We provide an extensive set of tools to increase and track profitability in real time. NAPA Trax offers the industry's best post-sale support, hands down, and we train your people on site. Yep, on site. And we offer remote refresher training 10 times a week, and customer support is open 6 days a week. Give us a call, visit the website, or join our Facebook community today to learn more. We'll prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. NAPA Tracks is always customized and tailored for you, whether you're a one-man shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at NAPA Tracks, that's NAPATRACS.com. To the dedicated auto shop owners, do you find uncashed checks gathering dust in your top drawer? Believe it or not, that's a sign that there's a better way to run your business. This is where AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching shifts the gear for you. It's not just about clearing that drawer, it's about redefining success and efficiency within your shop. With an AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching coach to hold you accountable, you're just not surviving, but thriving. Don't let the uncashed checks be your legacy. Visit AutoshopCoaching.com today. It's time to cash in on your true potential. AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching, turning potential into prosperity. Transform your team with today's class, where automotive training is easy, quick, and fun. Just 5 minutes a day on our app can eliminate hours of looking up forgotten information later. It's perfect for technicians, advisors, and managers alike. Keep critical knowledge fresh and top of mind, ensuring your team operates at peak efficiency. Today's class is impactful, accessible from anywhere, and a bit of fun too, and we're not talking about after-hours pizza either. For training that gets results, turn to todaysclass.com.
So I got a call from my insurance rep last week. It was on Thursday, I think. And he's a friend of mine. He's a car guy. He drives a Tesla. We do some service work for him. So he says, hey, I got a question. I just want to bang something off your head. And I go, okay, shoot. He goes, I got a client that's down in Long Beach area, and they worked on a BEV, and something went sideways. He didn't tell me what went sideways, but he says that the carrier, the insurance company, does not want to cover this because they found that none of their technicians had any level of electrical or, electrified vehicle, electric machine certification. And my insurance guy said, that seems like an overreach. And I said, I disagree. I go, think about this. There are things that you can do to the car that you may think they're benign, but it can easily go sideways. And that's a huge liability. Champion the insurance company for recognizing that and go, wow, they're finally waking up. I see some interesting things coming.
Since you had mentioned that, I've now, and maybe because of algorithms with your phone listening to you all the time, but I've now seen a few more of this similar situation on social media where people are asking, like, hey, have you gotten a phone call from your insurance company about specifically BEVs, but also hybrids, anything with high voltage battery packs in it? Are you storing these in your shop overnight? Are you working on these? Are you dealing with the high voltage side at all? And do your techs or anyone in the building have any sort of certifications, specifically ASE, in threatening that either insurance rates or threatening to take away insurance, that they can't insure you anymore if you are doing this? And then also the insurance has to be adjusted because of threat of incompetency and just things happen.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, this same insurance rep of mine, this is probably 6 or 7 years ago when the ADAS started coming up, right? And I jumped way in on ADAS and started doing training. I'm asking him every year, I'm going, hey, are they going to cover us if we're working on this ADAS stuff? And he kept saying, well, you're just repairing the car. You're putting the car back to regular service, right? And I said, yes, that's what we're doing. He goes, yeah, it's no different. And now he's saying, well, you know what? There might be some things happening. So there's some slow changes happen in the industry, but I think that there's going to be some significant changes that are going to be driving other factors, and rightly so.
Let me add to that a little bit, and I am speculating a bit here, and no, ASE has not been out soliciting insurance companies on this, but to be honest, I'm not disappointed that they're asking those questions. And let me have a little insight as to why this happens this way. So at Ford, one of my many responsibilities was I was the guy that signed off on recalls. And
wow.
Yeah, it was
big job.
Yeah, it was not fun. A lot of people were involved in that, right? But ultimately, I signed it, and that's what went out to the dealer to say we got this recall. And it's part of that business, if you will, or that operation is very involved with our attorneys, with NHTSA, and you start to get a feel for what drives some things. And I'm no lawyer, but I like to play one on TV.
Like Matlock?
Yeah, Matlock was kind of my favorite.
Right.
Yeah, that was my guy. I kind of bumble around a lot. The interesting thing was you get into some of those cases, what I've observed is if you're in a jury situation, let's face it, those are some of the things that drive insurance companies and what affects your rates ultimately. And I think of insurance companies as just a bunch of lawyers that are dealing with money. And
we don't want to pay.
That's right. We don't want to pay. And some other lawyer wants you to pay. And so when you get into those situations, often what I observed was when there was somebody that had a recognized credential, even like expert witnesses, professional engineer, that had those type of credentials, it took away a part of the argument. The court would just kind of recognize, okay, this person generally knows what they're doing. It doesn't necessarily change the rest of the case, but it's too easy to take a pot shot and say, well, this guy isn't credentialed. They don't know what they're doing. Therefore, you pay. End of story. That ability to have something you can hang your hat on, even as an insurance company, to say, these people are credentialed. It helps in those cases, but then it starts to reflect in the insurance rates. It's just an interesting thing you bring up, Scott. I see exactly how this can be unfolding.
Yep. To go beyond that, right? So we're talking about the ASE certification. When the insurance company sees that the entire shop has credentialed across the board, they, in theory, are less of a risk to that insurance company, right? So this is one of my pushes for this other model that we were talking about, and we may talk about in the future, but, next level certification.
Yeah.
Similar to what the FAA does.
Yeah. And we want to talk about that. I can't help but think of all the terrible destruction we've had this year with the hurricanes. So many people didn't have the insurance to cover it. And if they did have the insurance, they were a legacy person, if you will. They're paying a lot of money to the insurance companies. I can't imagine them go up to corporate, way up the ladder and says, listen, we've got to find a whole bunch of these. We got to pay some money. We got to figure out how to cut costs. And somebody sitting inside of their claims department came from our industry, gets it, understands, was ASE certified. And then they start thinking and it starts going, to your point, it just leaks everywhere. And this could be one of the biggest wake up calls in our industry ever, to stop and realize that battery electric vehicles or hybrids are not just a wrench kind of repair. It involves safety and a lot more knowledge and, if you will, personal risk.
We should have had a wake-up call with the John Eagle case, first and foremost, and that's just RTFM and do what it says. The next thing is, I think as Dave is alluding to, is if you are standing in front of a group of your peers, that you can say you RTFM, but then they can say, do you have the competency to be working on this system anyways?
Yeah.
Can we trust you followed it properly? Do you have the reading comprehension? Do you have the knowledge level to even do this? That still opens you up. It's just another layer of, this is the procedure we followed. This is the technician that did the work. This is their credentials. And will you avoid liability completely? Probably not. But you're going to keep stacking the odds in your favor of greatly reducing it, maybe eliminating it, but greatly reducing it, right?
Yeah.
It's like anything. You're going to go out on a really, really cold day. You wear a nice coat. Are you going to get a cold? Maybe. Stacking the odds against you. Putting a hat on will help better.
Well, yeah, Matt, to your point, statistics, when I think about insurance companies, that is their life, right? Actuaries, that is all they do. And so every bit of that, to your point, that reduces risk, they view as a win. But I want to go back to double down on what you said about the John Eagle case, right? And we think, well, that's collision and it's a very well-known case. There are cases like this on the mechanical side as well that people need to be aware of. And this is what worries me for ASE. And I feel like I have a responsibility to get the word out on this. And sometimes it appears self-serving. And so it's better when others say it, to be honest. But the reality doesn't change. When you think about what birthed ASE, it was a demand from the federal government saying there's too much fraud, there's too much incompetence, and we need to do something about it. The industry came in and appropriately so said, hey, let us take care of this. That's where ASE is born. And it was the right thing to do. I fear that some have forgotten about that element of it. And so when you talk about John Eagle, well, what happens if we have a John Eagle case, whether it's collision or on the mechanical side, and all of a sudden people wake up and say, wait a minute, back in 1972, you guys said you had fixed this. And have the cars gotten simpler or more complex? That makes me nervous, to be honest, for all of us. And at that point, they'll say, we don't need ASE either because you guys didn't do it. So it concerns me a lot. But at the end of the day, it's about the individual, their safety and security.
And it leads to almost a rant that ASE is a voluntary certification. Some people would view that as a detractor, like it takes away from it. And it should make it even more meaningful in that the people that are taking it care. They want to be professionals. They want to be to prove that they meet minimum level of competency set by industry. Okay. But we've also shown over 20 years, we can't do it. We've not taken the responsibility upon ourselves. We find every reason not to. We find every reason to devalue it. And, oh, it's not this and not that. And, oh, I know these master techs, they couldn't fix a sandwich. That's the argument. That's what you got. And then what'll happen is it'll take it to this level. And then, oh, well, where was ASE? You crapped on them for 20 years.
Amen.
Could ASE be a legally defendable credential in a case?
I don't know if any of us should answer that, but to me, the answer is, I think I could safely say this. It will help you.
It will help you.
It will help you.
I would say that it's a determining factor on whether there's some level of competency versus, it'll help. I look at it from the lawyer's perspective. They could argue for this person with the credential is more equipped than one without. To go beyond the ASE, there are industries. I'm in California, so we do have a little more regulation over things.
Just a little.
We have a Bureau of Auto Repair. Well, I've been in it for so many years, it doesn't seem like that much. But I talk to others in the industry, and I'm going, man, what do you guys do with all your extra time?
That's right.
It's crazy. But in California, to have my smog certification and inspection license, you have minimums. Those minimum requirements are certain ASE credentials. Same with the brake and light. Now it's called safety inspection. You've got to have these ASE credentials before you're even able to go in and take this certification test. And then you're required to take minimum training in between your recertification for that state license. There is some meat and potatoes behind that, but I know you haven't driven us to this yet, Carm, but the next level, and as Dave said, these vehicles have gotten more complicated, right? And these systems are so advanced that maybe just a written test is kind of the minimum. And the next level is proficiency and the proficiency doesn't have to be a hands-on. It could be a verbal communication. Because I remember when I was taking my flight training and I took my check ride, the first hour was a Q&A. And this examiner gives me a scenario and he's looking at my thought process and how I can put the eclectic mix of knowledge and pieces that I have, and I can put it together and formulate a solution. That's what they're grading on. They're grading on that, and then they take you out and make sure you can actually perform your job. And what was ironic, I'll go ahead and just kind of feed what happened.
This, yeah.
After I got licensed, I'm out flying, and I wanted to rent a different airplane that had a higher level. I had a glass panel, more sophisticated. So I find this local airport, and I go there, and they ask me, "Do you have wings?" level. They've got multiple levels. They said, "Do you have wings certification?" I go, "What's that?" So he pointed me in the right direction. That is another agency that the FAA Safety Administration has, and they have this self-learning platform where you can go in and you take training and you test out at each training. You have to pass your thing. If you don't pass, you take another one. You prove out you know what's going on. But once you go through all the training, you maintain your wing certification. Now I can do business with this vendor. But I also then found out that my insurance, my renter's insurance, had a rate reduction because I had this certification. And then I looked even further and I said, well, what's going on with the mechanics side? And I found out that AMP, airframe and power plant certified mechanic, he gets certified once and he's certified for life. There's no requirement for he or she to take any continuing education unless they become an inspector, authorized inspector that has to sign off on the work that's performed by the AMP. That person has to take continuing education and proficiency exams and what have you. But they do have a voluntary wings status for those mechanics as well. And I'm thinking, man, this is pretty cool. Well, I found out that, a aircraft station, a maintenance station, their technicians are certified in this wings platform. They can earn additional benefits, right? Like through insurance and maybe buying components. When you buy parts, and this is where my pitch came saying, hey, we can apply this into our industry. We almost would just take the documentation and do a find and replace for AMP for automotive technician. But the driver, the things that can actually help to fund some of this could be, or the carrot, so to speak, right? The carrot would be a reduction in insurance rates. Insurers say, hey, if you reach this level, if you've got all your staff at this level, you're less of a risk to us, so we're going to write a different policy for you.
Exactly.
Same goes with the parts manufacturers. You know how much money they would save on the parts return, no problem found, because these shops are buying parts, destroying them. It's just astronomical. So if we could take that model, it would almost feed itself, right? So I've beat the drum on this for probably the last 6 or 7 or maybe 8 or 9 years. That vision, I gave a presentation on this model that I had. And I had people come up to me afterward, they go, holy cow, I never even thought of that. That's an interesting aim.
I'm looking forward to having some more discussions with Scott about that.
I only can think, Dave, sit down with some big carriers and have a coffee meeting with them and tell them, would you be willing to give a discount, some kind of savings on liability coverage, whatever it is, if the credentials were there? That is going to minimize risk in so many categories. I mean, we don't want the government to get involved, do we? We don't want government nationally, licensing maybe in California, but nationally. It would be a cluster because the federal government's going to say, you states handle it, and then you've got 50 different ways of doing things, unless everybody adopts what's going on in California. Currently have no competency. And again, I love the thoughts that you had about, will ASE ever go to competency? Some kind of hands-on.
Proficiency. Yeah.
Proficiency. When I heard you speak, I couldn't help but think that I was crazy enough one day to watch a few episodes of Grey's Anatomy. And there was this point where they had to sit down with a board-certified surgeon so that they could become, and there was a Q&A session. And they had to pass a Q&A session, not only all the boards and all the tests. And I was kind of blown away that they were given all these particular surgical challenges to see if they were going to be able to, on the fly, come up with this stuff. This brilliant stuff.
That's a real deal thing, right? I mean, we have to think all the time. A lot of times we're looking at service information that has a very high level of ambiguity to it. And we're reading between the lines and we're trying to figure out, well, what was the engineer trying to do to get this thing to work and enter in its failure mode? So if you're questioning somebody and they're able to respond, and you know right away whether they know what they're talking about and whether they can critically think, right? The critical thinking is really
you're after that process. And a lot of this, though, we've been talking about this for a long time. We have multiple things going on at once. We have what Scott's bringing up here. We have the stuff we were talking about with Scott, Donnie, Cypher from NASDAF, David Boyes from today's class, about education. And so we can assign levels to training and prerequisites and track it, and then track the technicians or attendees, really wouldn't have to be just technicians, that after they go to the class, they're kind of tested afterwards, but the testing would also kind of feed that atrophy of, losing that knowledge over time because you don't apply it right away. To me, this all plays together. We have like 3-4 tornadoes going around, and we need them all to slam together in either an F5 or a hurricane, because they all coincide, they all work together to go after the big picture. And I think there's too many separate conversations that belong to be talked about together as a unit, that we could get the insurance companies involved, we can get the training companies involved, ASE. Today's class, I think, is in a really good position for monitoring, and then the diagnostic network, like the parts. There's a company that oversees all of it, like the Aftermarket Auto Parts Association or something like that. I don't remember the acronym. They would probably have to be the ones involved heavily to enforce such an idea, because it is a good idea. It would benefit them and everybody.
Yeah.
That gives some stuff some clout. And then, like what you're saying with the proficiency, it gives the training a little more clout, because Scott and I go to a training class. We're sitting there for 3 hours. Scott might leave retaining 80% of it for the next 2 years. I might leave it and retain 10% of it for 2 weeks. But we both got the same certificate.
We could go down a really interesting wormhole, because Matt and I, Tracy and a couple of other people, have kind of, if you will, whiteboarded some ideas like this. And we do believe it would be a heavy, heavy, heavy lift. But we're kind of trying to pull the educational piece, the competency piece, the certification piece. We'd have to work with associations and education units and ASE to pull it together so that I could walk into an employer and say, here's my certified online training and competency sheet. I mean, this is the real deal. Here it is. And how could we ever universally pull that together?
A couple of things. I wanted to go back to what Scott was saying around proficiency. And that's me being new to ASE. I get asked a lot of questions, right? I'm like, all right, it's one of the criticisms, right? Well, you just test on knowledge. Like, that's true. That's what psychometricians can deal with. That's the other part of this behind the scenes on the ASE side. That's the kind of thing that does have to be defensible in a court of law. We're very attuned to that. And this goes across the professional testing industry. So FAA, doctors, lawyers, dentists, the whole bit, they all use psychometricians to make sure that it's repeatable, that there's no bias, of all these things that they're looking at. And I say that the struggle is around the proficiency type exam and how do you get consistency and how you administer and get the responses. I'm just being honest, we're struggling with how do we deal with that. And so that's why I'm interested to talk to you, Scott. There's some other guys we're actually talking to about just because something was hard or not possible, let's be careful to not assume it will never be possible. And that there might be some ways to do that. And maybe it's an add-on or something that's not. Yeah, there's ways to, I believe there's ways that we can figure this out.
Sure. I think the logical thing would be to probably start at these advanced things, right? The BEVs and maybe the ADAS stuff, and focus on that. And on the practical test standards, okay, there is a document that the FAA has, and I remember going through all this and diving in deep, and they have for the examining group the parameters in which you design a test. So say, for instance, we do get to this point, we've got a ton of colleges out there and training facilities that have like partial cars, right? They're training devices, and they can be bugged. Well, we get those bugs inside of this training standards to test the technician or the applicant. If they pass the criteria, they become certified. I think everything's there. We just got to get industry and the players together to, one, understand, take an investment in it, and move us to the next level. I mean, the vehicles are driving the technology, right? The EPA is driving the standards, around why these cars have to be efficient and what have you. And we're the repairers putting these things back together.
And I wanted to touch on something you said, Matt, back around both of you have touched on it, around the continuing education part. And this is something where I'm really pleased with. I get no credit for this. ASE was doing this before I got there, and that maybe you've seen it or heard about it, what we call the Renewal app.
I am a massive proponent of it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where right now it's the A series, it is this continual renewal. I'll tell you that little inside baseball here with ASE, the discussions that we get into around this it's like, we don't do learning. We don't do education because we certify. We need to be righteous on that. And I'm with you. That Renewal app is a little...
It's doing both.
It's kind of both, right?
But, it forces your hand at least.
And I have some of my folks struggle with it. Like, I'm not sure we should be doing this. Here's my view. My view is we're not doing the training. What we're doing is asking the questions, as you would know, Matt, that prompt the need to go learn, and then we try to point you in a direction to go learn. ASE is not teaching you that. We don't want to pollute that relationship, but there's all kinds of great resources out there. So if we can ask the right questions that prompt the learning and say, all right, you come back with the answers because you've either done research, you've gone to a class, whatever. I love that concept. And I think that's, for us, you're going to see us leaning into that heavily around recertification because, yes, you can take the traditional recertification. The tests do evolve over time, so it does start to reflect what's happening in the industry today versus 5 years ago. But this is continual. It's ongoing.
And it can be, the scope of what can be asked is so much wider than what can be on the written. It's to the point where you can ask very vehicle-specific questions. Since they have time to answer the question, and it's not 15 seconds, it's minutes, they can, while in the question, go to a resource, read up on it. They have the time and come back and make an educated guess. And if you get it wrong, so what?
You have multiple shots at it.
What? Now you found a weak spot.
Yeah, so Matt and I have both been consumers. I've been consumer from day one.
I'm so glad to hear this. It's like an advertisement for us. Thank you.
I've done episodes on this, ranting about people's misunderstanding with the ASE and then the app itself.
And I also solicited it in the shop, and I have my technicians on it as well. And it's really, I see that this is probably the right way to do it, because when you get certified, what is it, 5 years? To
5 years, yeah.
There's a lot that changes in 5 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this keeps you current, right? And really, the beauty of this is that, because, again, I'm a lot of ADAS stuff, right? ADAS now affects everything in the car, and you see these ADAS questions are popping up. And I get my texts, they're doing the Renewal app. They come and ask me because they had a few questions that morning. And they go, what's going on with this? What is the radar? They're asking these questions. So it also entices discussion in the shop. And that's great, right? It gets their brain fresh and wants them to explore more and become more proficient, right? So when that car rolls in, they're going to put it in service mode. They got to pull the whole front clip off the car to do timing belt, timing chain, whatever. And there's a radar sensor there. They're going to go, I know about this thing. There's something we've got to do about this when we put it back together. So it's an excellent tool. And it is a learning tool, right? It can be a factor of learning. The today's class thing we were talking about too is the same thing. We've been using that.
Principles.
That is, all of my techs are on it, and we're keeping current on that too because it's a training. Microlearning is what they call it. Mm-hmm. I've been microlearning my entire life. When the internet came around, I saw this internet communication stuff. I go, man, there's something here.
Oh, yeah.
I was getting criticized at work for bringing the first computer in the shop. They're going, what's this computer doing in here?
Oregon Trail, man.
You're never going to need a computer, right? I'm learning through others, and through my years, I've exponentially grown my proficiency by learning through others. I see Matt talking about something. I go, man, he's talking about stuff I don't know anything about.
Neither does he, but yeah.
Listen, I got to stop. And
we're having fun.
I got to do a commercial for you. This guy is such a geek that if you've ever watched his ADAS YouTube stuff, you'll be blown away on how he has actually gone deep inside and shown you what the computer sees when it's looking
vision.
out. Yeah. Good stuff.
With the questions like the interview type, how far away do you think AI chatbots could be to fill that need?
Yeah, that's a challenge. Right now, universities are challenged right now with writing essays and stuff, and they're trying to figure out if a chatbot wrote it or if the human did it. So,
I was thinking if you're doing the interview, though, instead of a board, the AI chatbot is the board, and then it asks the question.
Yeah,
I speak to it.
I think that there needs to be the personal element. I mean, I need to look in your eyes.
Yeah.
I need to see your thought process. I need to see how you're reflecting because that's how you are addressing the car. That's my take. I wouldn't want a chatbot. I'd want another human there conducting this.
Well, and we have some work to do there. And I want to put in one final plug around ASE. And we've talked about needing to have the credential. And people that criticize it, Matt, back to your point, you do such a great job of defending the fort, if you will, on that in good ways. Here's part of the problem. I believe we have 200,000 plus fantastic technicians that know what they're doing every day, can do the work. They don't have the piece of paper, if you will, that proves it because of test anxiety, maybe dyslexia, may be different things that affect them. One of the things I want us to work on, because this gets back to helping the whole industry, lifting everyone, is, and I don't know how to do it exactly, but my goal is that we have a way to better enable and recognize, if you will, those fantastic technicians that are out there today that don't have a certification for whatever reason, and yet they are, by all intents and purposes, a Master ASE certified tech. We just want to get them there. And that's a lot of work. And these things you're talking about, proficiency, all these types of assessing, are things that we got to look at and try to make it easier.
And it'll be a win-win for the industry.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. It almost sounds like we need to do a part two because this was a fluent, very fluent, exciting interview. Dave Johnson, President ASE. Scott Brown, Diagnostic Network. Matt Fonslow. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.